Hi, I'm Troy. I did a sermon. I'm not a preacher, but I did a sermon way before this. I did two of them because one came off the internet or YouTube and whatnot. And I explained baby Jesus better. We're going to explain exactly all it was on that one, too. But I didn't do it all I wanted. I'm going to explain 3 in 1, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I'm going to put the two sermons together because there's more up. Now, I'll also show you Lucifer, the devil who turns into Satan, is not God, and how God shows you it and what he represents. Now, Adam and Eve were in the garden, abundant of fruit, all different kinds, in multitude, plenty of, just like they had a multitude of life, pure. And there was a tree of life and a tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, God, he came to that garden and said, you can eat from any fruit here in the garden. There's a multitude of, and plenty. And he said, you can eat from the tree of life, but not the tree of knowledge and good and evil. See, he had to do that. He had to give them choices in life because he didn't make robots. He made people. They had to be individuals and make decisions, and just like us. And there's consequences going to decisions, and they lie upon all of us. And this is why it did. Eve was leaning against the tree. Lucifer, the devil, came. The most beautiful thing in the garden. And he convinced Eve from eating from the tree. Now she was naked. And Adam came. And he saw her naked. And she convinced him. Then he was naked. Now because they ate from the knowledge of good and evil, they had the knowledge. So they hid. God came and said, why are you hiding? And they said, because we're naked. And he said, you've eaten of the tree. And they had. And he said to Eve, now you will have many, many children. There will be pains and labor like there never was. And you, Adam, and your children were cursed. And we were all cursed. Because Lucifer, the devil, got Eve to eat from the tree. And Eve got Adam to eat from the tree. So God showed you the devil wasn't God. And he struck him down on a poisonous venomous snake, representing the tree of knowledge and good and evil with this poison and death to us all. Now, I will, if you don't understand that, you'll understand this. It's been a mystery for a long, long time. 3 in 1, Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. I'll show you it. Now, God the Father, he always was, okay? Now, I'm not a comparison to God, but this is my temple. I have the Holy Spirit in me. That's it. Now, Mary, she had the Holy Spirit in her, 1. God the Father put his Spirit in her, 2. And baby Jesus came out, 3 in 1. A new creation on earth. And because God, the Father always was, Jesus prayed Father because he was God. We pray Jesus in Father's name because we're not. Now we're going to get to Jesus and the 12 disciples at the table. Now, Jesus took bread and he broke it and said, eat of this in remembrance of me, for my blood, or my body will be broken. He passed it and ate. Then he got wine, and that was grape juice. See, there's many interpretations for wine in the Bible, if you look in the index. Now, he took the wine that was grape juice, and he said, drink of this in remembrance of me, for my blood will be shed. He passed it, and they drank. Then he said, somebody will betray me. And they all said, not me, not me, not me. And he knew what was going to happen. So he went to the Father and he said, Father, if you can have this pass, have it pass. But either way, your will be done. And his will was going to be done. See, Jesus was going to prove he was God. And it happened in this way because Judas went to the king. He said, I will show you where Jesus is and who he is. And see, he wanted a war and Jesus to be king. Now, they say he betrayed him with a kiss. This is why. Back then, he had the soldiers there. And he came and he kissed Jesus on the cheek. And that's how they showed the soldiers who the prisoner was. Prisoner or criminal was they wanted. Okay. Now, some people say, where did nails come from? I can prove to you there was nails. Now, See, Peter came when they came to arrest him. He swiped off the soldier's ear. God put his hand there and gave his ear back. Now, the sword was metal. And then we go back further in Jesus' life. There was metal way before. But he was a carpenter. He built tables. He built chairs. He built houses and whatnot. Now, after he gave him back his ear, they took him to the temple. And they beat him and beat him and beat him. And then they took him as a judge. And see, he had to do this to prove he was God. Now, he said he was Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah. And the judge said, that's blasphemy. Because that means that you said you're God and you weren't. And he was going to prove it. See, the Jews, they knew. And he told the judge, tear down the temple and I'll rebuild it in 3 days. Now, the judge, he thought that he was talking about the temple they lived in, but it wasn't. This was his temple. He was saying, put him to death. He will rise again in 3 days, which they call resurrect. Now, so he was charged of that. So they took him to king, okay? Nobody would do nothing. And they went to the only king that would put people to death, okay? And now, he didn't want to put him to death. He didn't. He said to them, I see him do nothing wrong. And they're gathering such a multitude. He didn't know what to do. He feared a war like Judas wanted, a war and Jesus to be king. So he got Barabbas out. He was a killer. And Jesus of Nazareth was accused of blasphemy. Now, he said, I release you one prisoner a year. Do you want me to release Barabbas, the killer, or Jesus of Nazareth, Messiah, accused of blasphemy? And they released Barabbas. Now, he wanted nothing to do with it, so he said, give me a bucket of water and a towel. And they did. He dipped his hands in it, washed them off, and said, I cleansed myself of this. And then they took him to the middle of the temple, wrapped their arms around a pole, and twined him and confined him, how they ever did. And they whipped him. If that wasn't enough, they took a leather strip with hooks on it, whipped him with that, turned flesh to flesh. Then they took him to the top of the stairs with the king. The king said, now what do you want me to do? Hang him on the cross? And Jesus said, let it be done. So he was walking up the hill with the cross. And a soldier saw him and said, come over here and help us carry the cross to the top of the hill. And he did, which he became a follower or believer later on. Now, there were 2 other prisoners there. They did them differently because the Holy Day was coming. See, they broke their arms and legs and hung them on the cross. They died with broken arms and legs. Now, Jesus was prophesied that he wouldn't break a bone. Now, they laid him on the cross. The soldier said, the soldier said, I don't want to do this, but it's my job. And Jesus said, let it be done. Now, they nailed him to the cross, and not a bone was broken. And then they put him in a hole in the ground with the cross, just like the others. Now, the one mother and complained. The other one was a thief. He said, he done nothing wrong. We have. Jesus, will you remember me in your kingdom? And he said, we shall be in paradise tonight. Now, after that, he prayed to the Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do wrong. And then they came and they pierced him in the side into the heart, causing water and blood to come out. And then God, it's dark as night in the middle of noon, and thunder and lightning struck, and the earth shook. And then they took him off to a tomb, laid him down and put a blanket over, rolled a rock. 2 soldiers sat there for 3 days to prove that he didn't get taken or he didn't rise again. Now, he rose again on the 3rd day, proving it wasn't blasphemy when he said he was God. He was God. And he was here for 40 days proving it. Now, an angel came to Mary and said, Jesus has risen. She said, Jesus has risen? He said, yes. Or the angel did. And she went there and she said, the rock's moved. He has risen. Soldier said, no, we were here the whole time and looked and the rock was moved. All there was in there was Jesus on Jesus' blanket, excuse me, and God shined down a light so bright on him it put an impression into him. Now, after that, Mary went off to a house where everybody was, and Thomas was there, and Thomas said, I won't believe he's risen again unless I stick my finger in the hole in his wrist or in his side. Now, God, he walked through a wall, Jesus, and he said, Thomas, stick your finger in a hole in my wrist or my side. Now, Thomas knew then. And Jesus was here for 40 days, proving he was God, just like I'm telling you. Now, Judas, he went off to the temple, and the soldiers or king or whoever it was, they threw gold at him and said, take your gold, you've earned it. He said, I didn't want that. He threw it back. Now, nobody would touch it because it was blood money. And Judas, early on, is like Jesus had told him, you've been better not born. Now, he went to the top. That proves there's a heaven and a hell. Now, he went up and hung himself by a rope on a tree, and he died that way. Now, some people going to churches, teach the doctrine, get kicked out. They say Jesus was hung on a cross by a rope. He died that way. The only person in the Bible that died that way was Judas, and they prayed to Judas. That's all I got to say. Thank you.